Hello, this will be a short tutorial on how to set up SPSS or the IBM PASW for data entry. Now I'm using SPSS Statistics 21 version 21, but the principles will apply to any version of SPSS. When you open SPSS, this is your first dialog box. You can do a number of things, run a tutorial, but I'm going to have you go right here to type in data. That's where most of the time you're going to start. If you already have a file available that's an SPSS file, you'll start here, click the more files, it'll open up a dialog box and you'll be able to select the file you're interested in. But for the purposes of this short tutorial, you're just going to go straight to type in data and click OK. You'll notice that there are two tabs, the data view and the variable view. The data view is where you enter the data from your data collection instruments. In each one of these lines is a case or a survey or an item of interest, whatever your data collection instrument is. And each one of these columns is a separate variable. Sometimes a separate question on a survey or a biometric marker or whatever it is that you've measured and now you want to analyze as a variable. Now in some cases you can start entering data right here, almost like an Excel spreadsheet. If you already know from your coded code book what you want to do, you can enter the data right in this box just as you would a spreadsheet. I like to set up the variables first so that I know exactly where I enter my information. So I click the variable view. Now each line on the variable view, each line is a new variable, the things that were in the columns before. Each one of these lines will define the variable for that column. So this is variable 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first thing you want to do is give the variable a name. Gender, maybe one. Age, maybe another. I'm going to show you a survey here that we have from a previous video so you can see where we would pull the information from. In this survey you'd have gender first, and then age, and then ethnicity, and then height in inches, ethnicity, height, and so on. Now you notice when you enter, after you type in the name, a whole bunch of other default characters show up here, and we're going to talk about each one of these values. The important parts of the name, it has to be short. It's not going to show up anywhere except in this data view to remind you what that variable is. Most of the time these are going to be numeric. Sometimes if you're entering qualitative data and you have names or addresses or something, you'll enter string here, which are just numbers or letters, excuse me. The label is the next important thing. The label is what shows up on all of your outputs. When you run an analysis, all of the outputs will show the label. For me, I like to put the question name from the survey on the label output so that I can recreate my survey later. So I'm going to label gender here because I didn't ask the question differently. You could have put what is your gender here. What is your age? I think in our survey we just asked age, so I'm going to identify age, ethnicity, and I'm going to put height in inches because we're going to do some analysis later that shows you how to transform that, but we've wanted to characterize that height in inches. We've got weight in pounds and blood pressure. And here, blood pressure, we're going to do systolic and diastolic blood pressure, and so we'll have two variables. So now we have the whole left side of our survey: gender, age, ethnicity, height, weight, systolic and diastolic blood pressures. And in our labels, we were able to be more specific. A very important component of our variable view, as we define our variables, is the measure. Each one of these measures has to have either scale, ordinal, or nominal type. This allows us to determine what kind of analysis the computer is willing to do on the data. For instance, if we select nominal, and gender is a nominal data type, we won't be able to do analysis that requires a continuous variable. For instance, we shouldn't be able to do a t-test as the dependent variable on gender, because it's not a scaled variable, so it won't show up as a selection item for the dependent variable in our analysis. Age is a scale. We asked it in a way that produces scaled variable. Ethnicity is nominal. Height in inches was scale. Weight was scale. Systolic blood pressure was scale. And diastolic blood pressure is also scale. You'll notice when we set up our survey in our codebook, we identified these variable types. So it would be easy to come back and set up our SPSS. The other really important component are the values. We need to tell the computer what the numbers mean in the data view. When I start entering 1s and 2s in gender, the variable view gives us the values. We're able to identify the values. So when we open up the values or put our cursor on the values, there's this little dialog box that says there's more options. We click that and we're able to define what the numbers on the data view mean to the computer. So the value 1 we wanted to have as female, and the value 2 we wanted to mean male. And we know that because in our code book we have female as 1 and male as 2. And we click OK, and now the computer knows what a 1 and 2 means for gender. With scale variables, there are no values. The values are on a number line, 0 to infinity, and so we don't have to tell the computer what a 1 means because it means 1, or a 5 because it means 5. However, with our other nominal variable ethnicity, we do have to define it. And when we look back at our coding sheet, we have 1 is Caucasian, 2 is African descent, 3 is Asian, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, and we can enter those in to our value labels 1. And every time we enter the 1 in the label, we have to click add to put it in this box right here. And once we have all of these entered in, then we click OK and the computer saves it. So now that we've entered all of our variables into our variable view, we can go back to our data view and enter the information from each survey. So we had a survey where the person was female. To stay on the case, we hit tab and it takes us to the next variable. If we hit tell the computer that the first case was female and hit enter, it will take us to the next case. So if we're entering from a particular survey or an individual data set, we want to use tab to get us to the next space. Then we'll say that that person was 40, that they were African descent, that they were 64 inches, and that they were 134 pounds. Their systolic blood pressure was 126, and their diastolic blood pressure was 92. And when I get to the end of that and hit tab, when I get to the end of our variables that have been defined and hit tab, it takes me to the next variable. This is the setup. Once I have the data entered, if I want to look at the variable labels because I'm not sure what a 1 means or what this ethnicity means, I can go to View and click Value Labels. Click that and it actually tells me that this is a female. And then the next person, as I enter 2 and tab, it automatically identifies or converts the numerical value in those defined places as the label. To turn that off, I simply go back and click Label Values, and I'm back to where I was before. So that's a quick tutorial on how to set up the variables in SPSS.